This is definitely one you trust the process and it will not let you down. Hello and welcome to my channel. In this video, we're going to be talking about The Last of the Atalanteans by P.L. Stewart. And this is book 2 in the Drowned Kingdom Saga, one I've been meaning to get to for quite a while. And I talked about this a little bit in a weekly update that was a couple of weeks ago now, because I've been meaning to actually film this review and get this out and ready for a bit now. But I talked about it a bit where I was feeling like things were moving a little bit slow in the first half of this one. And I wasn't as into it as I thought I would be after the first book. And as I started to finally get a little bit further in, and especially around the halfway point, oh my gosh, did everything start to really, really pay off. And it really shows why a lot of the choices were made and the way that they were done in the first half of the book. And this is definitely a series I think that you do have to be patient with. It's not going to just outright give you everything and show you everything, and it'll take a while to get there sometimes, but at least for me so far has been very worth it after getting into the second half, the end, what have you. And I know this is very much a slow burn series, which tends to fit my taste pretty well anyway, as it is as well. And there's just so many things that this is doing that I really enjoy. So this is the book 2 in a series, and I am planning to keep this spoiler free, and I think I honestly have enough things to talk about to keep it thus, I guess. I just won't be able to talk about really specific plot points so much. But the thing I want to talk about is kind of the genius way that P.L. Stewart is mixing up and changing up a lot of tropes that you see in fantasy in different ways than you would necessarily expect, and also doing it through Othrun, who is not the best guy as a character. And I talked about this in my review of the first book. I distinctly remember, because I referred to him as a guy who will betray and murder his allies, no problem, but cheat on his wife? Oh no, that would be absolutely crossing the line. And we're presented a pretty complicated picture with the main character of Othrun. And I think that's one of the things that is an interesting choice here, because Othrun is a complicated guy, and he's presented, he's the protagonist. He is the lord of the Atalanteans. He's, trying to establish his whole new kingdom through whatever means necessary, potentially. And yet he's not exactly the shining, great knight kind of character that you would necessarily expect. Now that's a very intentional choice that's done here, because we have the Atalanteans, who are very much they're expanders, and they would conquer other places, they would take over, they have this massive empire despite the fact that it's a small island. Something that is familiar, I feel like, in both fantasy and history as well. But then when the island is destroyed, it sinks under the sea, that's when things change dramatically. And so we see this different side of the empire that's going out, and how Othrun is struggling with having looked at this as the greatest pinnacle of civilization, but then seeing kind of what else is out there. And as he's in a different land, trying to create different allies, and seeing firsthand that people that he might have thought were barbarians or have these just false and silly beliefs are more complicated than he thought, and that a lot of the things he thought about the way the world works aren't necessarily working in that way. And so we see as he continues, and as we have travels, and especially in this book, what starts, it seems kind of like a slower journey, but things start to really come to the fore, and you see kind of why it's being done the way it is, because it's all about seeing how these events and these things that are happening change or don't change the perspective of the character Othrun. And it's so interesting to see too the things that he learns, and then the things that he just kind of reverts back. And depending on, he's definitely a character that when he's in a situation where he's away from kind of the trappings of his normal life and being in charge, he might see things differently, but then kind of once he's back to normal, some things just revert back to the way they were. And so that kind of journey with him as he grows, but not too much, is, I think, really fascinating. And in the beginning here in the foreword, the author does specifically mention that, yes, he's not really a great person. He's bigoted, and he's ignorant about a lot of things, but he will grow. And I think that kind of slow but realistic growth is what makes the character really feel real and complex and fleshed out. And so I've been enjoying that with it as well. And I have to say, In this one of the things that was done so well is the battle and the action sequences. And I remember that being good in the first one, but I just feel like it almost like took me by surprise how real and visceral and just strong the action sequences were here when they came. Especially when we had a book that, like I said, was kind of slower going for a while. And this is definitely a long book. But the action and battle sequences were so well done and had me so invested. And then seeing all of how the different political bits and pieces are going to be working out. There's some big things that even though you kind of see them coming, they're still shocking. And so really well done with how this is all working out. And there's, while we get some questions answered, there's still a lot more questions coming as well. And I know that this is a series that is taking its time and doing quite a lot, and that's one of the interesting things. And I want to talk a little bit more about what I was talking about with the subversion of a lot of the tropes that we see, where normally we are used to seeing, especially in Western fantasy, we're looking at the brave, noble knights, following their single god, and these are the heroes and the empire and the kind of thing. And now, granted, we have seen a lot more in modern times in modern fantasy going against kind of empires and that sorts of thing. And so we definitely have seen that, but normally it's this, the chivalrous knights and, that kind of thing. Paladins, it's seen as the positive, it's seen as the good guys, and this is really exploring the other side of that. It's really, in a real way showing that, this character who thinks he's doing the right thing by trying to take over and start a new empire and his country who's been doing this and taking over and forcing people to convert to the religion, and is really looking at, how horrific that really is. And how different cultures and different groups of people do things differently, and playing with the idea too of the superiority of a race. And it's not only with people that are different featured, but of the same race as the main character, but also others as well. And that's something that's mentioned that we have here. As the main character would say, the black people. Which is, I remember doing some audio at the first, and I still remember the narrator does such a good job with the kind of the whiny but prim voice that I still read the main character's voice in my head that way. But who, they're far off, they're savages, and we see they've actually left ruins of a very advanced civilization, and also seem like we're going to get to see more of that in the later books as well. So it's really taking a different look at that and kind of making you look at the way that those types of things are perceived, and the way Western fantasy tends to go, and the way much of Western history has gone, and kind of showing you some different sides of it, and showing that, the people who are the barbarians might actually, be fairly advanced. And it's taking a stance of something we've seen a lot in history too, where the victors or the quote-unquote civilized people write history the way that they want it. And we see that in action here a little bit as well, where history is being documented, and it might not always be the most accurate as well. And so we're seeing that kind of idea, but playing out in real time. And for me, it's really fascinating, and it's something that I have enjoyed. Now, I will say, because I've mentioned that this is slow going, and this is quite a long book, I do feel my main critique here would be, I do feel that the book and the prose gets a bit wordy at times, and sometimes it'll be a little bit repetitive, where like we'll have a sentence, we'll have another sentence or two, and then we'll kind of just say that same sentence in some different words. So it does get a bit wordy at times, and I feel like this definitely could be shortened, because this is like a 500-page book. It could be a bit shorter than that. However, in the second half, I didn't mind at all, because I was just so engrossed in it. And so this kind of thing, it is one you're going to have to be patient on, and you're going to have to be okay with it taking a while to develop. And that's the case for this book and this second book in general, but also for the series. This is, I know, and from what I've heard, going to be a slow burn of a series where we're getting big moments that are coming and really bringing things up and having these pivotal moments, but it can take a while to kind of get there. And we're building on a lot of layers. We're having a lot going on before that's going to happen. And that's one of those things that I know won't work for everyone, but for me so far, this has been a really rewarding series. As long as you trust the process, trust that the author knows what he is doing here, and just go along for the ride. And if you're like me and you really love the exploration of things like religion and you like the politics and in a fantasy setting, and one that's really giving you, I feel like it's taking a bold take and really kind of looking in the face of these different topics in a really fascinating way, I think you'll find a lot to love here in this book. Really, though, those are my thoughts on The Last of the Atalanteans by P.L. Stewart, Book 2 in Drowned Kingdom. I will most certainly be continuing. I do have the next book, which is Lord and King, I think. Yep, Lord and King. I certainly will be continuing. I think Book 4 is out now as well, too, I believe. So I'll definitely be continuing, and I'm looking forward to seeing what more is going to happen here. It's definitely a series that I'll be taking my time with and just kind of enjoying, but one that I very much am enjoying so far. So that's it for this one. Make sure to give the video a like if you enjoyed it. Check the link in the description, as always, for the Wizardly On-Click Discord if you want to chat books, whether this book, other books, really anything at all. It's a lot of fun. We would love to have you. And, of course, if you enjoy my content, make sure to subscribe.